what we talked about last time is we were talking about the Hadith and how the Hadith contain the Sunnah of the Prophet. And so the Sunnah are these teachings of Muhammad, and they're all written down in the Hadith. And so if you're going to understand the Quran, you have to understand the Hadith. It's just something you have to be aware of. Now, let me give you a few reasons here why the Sunnah is so important to Islam. And again, I'll try to link the YouTube, some YouTube videos for more information on all this. But why the Sunnah is so important? First of all, the prophets were infallible in Quran's understanding, and so you have all of these teachings about the various prophets. So Moses shows up, and Muhammad shows up, and Jesus shows up. All of these are considered prophets. They are considered infallible, which means unable to commit major sins. That doesn't mean they didn't sin at all. It just the major sins are they're incapable of doing. Allah sent the prophets on purpose so that we would follow their lifestyle, and so there were several prophets, sent to the Jews or sent to other people, and then Muhammad is sent for like all mankind, and so we should follow his example and live according to his lifestyle, and that's why you will see a lot of the current day Muslims will live in a way that is at least consistent with some of the way an Arab would live in 600 or 700 AD. The companions, they obeyed and they were praised for it, so that's why you should also obey and be praised for it. There were verses in the Quran that admonish following the lifestyle of Muhammad, and so therefore if you are a faithful follower of the Quran, then you should be a faithful follower of the Hadith. The Hadith mentions Muhammad talking about his own Sunnah. He comments that he was given something beyond the Quran and then commanded his companions to preserve and to refuse to lie about it. And so he is, and that is why they would go back to his companions and say, all right, what did he learn? Now, the only way they can go back to these companions is through the Isnad chains. And so that's where you are still seeing things hundreds of years after the fact. And there you go. Now, the other reason that the Sunnah is so important is just common sense. Okay, Quran doesn't explain everything that it commands. So it doesn't say when to pray, how often to pray, how to pray. And so these hadith are going to come along after the fact and tell you that stuff. And then, again, with the Sunnah, there is unanimous consensus among all Islamic groups. And so therefore, that's why if you are a Muslim, you should obey these things. Now, continuing with this, the Quran is explained by the Sunnah. So if you need to understand anything that's unclear, then you run to the hadith and you see what the Sunnah is, since that's where a majority of the information about Muhammad is found. So the Sunnah, these are the messages from Muhammad to us, and they are preserved in the Hadith. Okay? Now, I am a Christian, which means I do not accept the Hadith. I do find some of their writing beautiful. I do find some of their writing intriguing, but I do not accept it as, scripture. I am giving you those points as a understanding of Muslim ways of thinking. Now, James White has done a ton of study. I'm going to link you to a video here where he ends a debate, and I find it amazing that he can deal with it and he can graciously end a debate with the gospel. And sometimes James White is criticized for being, arrogant and all that stuff. I have not found him to be so, and I have watched untold hours of material that he has put out. He is confident. He understands the topic at hand. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think the man knows what he's talking about, and he has studied thoroughly, and I don't think it's arrogance. I think it's a confidence and a reliance on the truth, and if you don't like that, then you're going to label it as arrogant. And so I think that's something to just keep in mind as you deal with some of these apologists. Even David Wood, like he is, clinically a sociopath, but he does it for the cause of Christ. There's things he does that I would not do, but he does it for the cause of Christ, and he doesn't answer to me. And that's why I can look and say, I wouldn't do that, but you know what? You're God's servant, and so God will take care of you if you're not doing the right thing. That's not for me to say. And I don't think he's doing anything that is heretical. I think there are just some things that I look at and go, I wouldn't have said that. So if you want to look more information there, I'll leave you some of these links. And so again, you need to understand the Hadith. You need to understand the Quran. Don't say that Muhammad and Muslims believe things that they don't. I realize this has just been an introduction to Islam, but I want to give you that information and let you guys start working your way through it. And maybe someday we'll deal with why I'm not a Muslim.